Laying hens, especially the high production laying hens like these highlines, need to have the right kind of food or they can get serious health issues and the quality of the egg and the eggshell can suffer. So nutritionally balanced food and fresh water is absolutely essential. However, I found that if I fed them treats occasionally or only in small amounts or just during the training sessions for a few minutes a day, the chickens stayed healthy and the egg quality stayed good and the shell quality looked good too. I first observed that the chickens liked some treats better than others with the previous group of chickens. Here's a kind of grainy old video that I took of them eating blueberries. Clearly, blueberries are a very high value treat for them. Their love of these treats, of course, was the reason I could teach them to do tricks. They learned very quickly that when they figured out a test or a trick that I was teaching them, that they got something special to eat. Sometimes it would be a bit of grain, sometimes a blueberry, or a piece of bread. I found, though, that they figured out quite quickly that some treats were of higher value to them than others. For example, when I was teaching them to jump through the hoop, which was really just stepping from one block of wood to the other through the hoop, that I would give them a piece of bread. I have a video of a chicken that had figured out that if she refused to go through the hoop, if I only offered her grain, I would come back with a piece of bread for her. Then she would jump through the hoop for the bread after refusing to jump through for the grain. So she figured out that if she held out, she would get a higher value reward. Of all the treats that I fed them, the one that kept them amused for the longest time was the corn cob, one that I had already cut the corn off for my own dinner, and then I took the remaining part of the corn cob and suspended it from a string from the roof of their pen. I put my camera on time-lapse to see how long it would keep them entertained in their pen, and it seemed to keep them amused, going back and forth from that or other activities for most of the day. The value of that is they had something to entertain and amuse them without them eating so much empty calories that it would become a danger to their health or reduce their egg quality. Chickens love to forage outside, scratching in the grass and the dirt, I'm assuming, for bugs and worms and other little things to eat, and little leafy weeds and so on. But I didn't really realize until this group of chickens that they actually eat the grass too. I don't know how nutritious the grass is for them, but they seem to really enjoy it and they eat quite a large quantity of it. I noticed that the grass in their pen was much shorter than the grass outside the pen because the chickens were constantly mowing the grass down. I offered them several different kinds of treats to try in small quantities. Things like lettuce, kale, and squash to peck at they enjoyed, but they were much more keen on the higher sugar treats like corn, cherries, and grapes. They also loved oatmeal porridge, which I used to prepare for them once in a while on a really cold morning. And I think because it's very high in starch. Spaghetti was a fun one to try. I thought it was clever that some of them figured out, even on their first try, that the way to eat spaghetti was to bite off small pieces at a time and eat them rather than tackling the whole strand at once. Another fun thing they enjoyed was they loved to get treats at bedtime just before I secured the coop for the night. I'm not exactly sure what to conclude about their eagerness to take treats and drink water out of a little container as I offered it to them, because they had a continual supply of fresh water at all times in their coop. So I don't know why they enjoyed drinking out of the little water container that I passed back and forth to them on the perch, but their enjoyment of it is easy to see. Something else chickens are really keen on is taking dust baths. First they dig a hole or they find a dusty area, and then they'll fluff up their feathers and roll around, kicking up dust in a way to get all the dirt and dust in between their feathers and down to their skin. They get really absorbed in what they're doing when they do this and look deliriously happy. In this video, I have opened the door and I'm calling the chicken who's next in line for training, which they're usually very eager to do because they get treats and they usually run over for me to pick them up. But in this case, the chicken is so absorbed in her dust bathing routine that they're ignoring us. But since the chickens are so tame, I'm able to go and pick them up one at a time while they're in the dust bath and take them to the garage and put them down on a sheet of plastic and wait for them to shake the dust off onto the plastic. Then I lift up the corners of the plastic and gather up all the dust and pour it into containers and weigh it to see how much dirt they're actually able to get into their feathers and keep there. I took samples from 3 different chickens and weighed them, and the weights were 74.7 grams, 45.6 grams, and 71 grams. So that's how much dirt one chicken is able to kick into its feathers and carry around and then shake out after. Chickens have a very strong drive to find a dark, safe place when they feel they're about to lay an egg. I noticed, too, that when I put a good amount of straw or shavings in their nest box, they would often spend a lot of time improving the nest by picking up straw or shavings and placing it around them. I can't really guess what they're feeling, but it looks like it's an enjoyable task for them to work on their nest. The next video clip shows the urgency the chickens feel when they know they're about to lay an egg to get back to their nest box. In the next video, Chatty Cathy is outside in a pen and she's pacing up and down inside the wire looking quite distressed. She really wants to be let out and I can't figure out why at the time, so I take a video and see that she just wants to get back to the nest box. Chatty Cathy's been acting funny. She really wants to come out. I'm not sure why. Come on, Chatty Cathy. What is it that you want? What is it that you want? You want something. Is it Chatty Cathy? You want to come up into here? You think you're going to lay an egg or something? That's what I thought. That's what I thought. She really wanted to get in there so she could lay an egg. One of the biggest dilemmas when keeping chickens, especially commercial chickens, I would imagine, is how to keep them safe if you take them outdoors. The moment they go outside, the risk of predation by animals like dogs, birds, raccoons, mink, foxes, coyotes, and bears, to name a few, goes up, and so does the risk of disease, exposure, and accidents and things like that. I try to minimize this with my chickens by keeping them most of the time in a small pen that has a concrete base around the perimeter and a chain link fence. This keeps them fairly safe. This chicken here does have an opportunity to dig inside this enclosure, and she's fairly safe from most predators, but it doesn't really give her much room to move around or forage. My last group of chickens had fewer activities than these ones, and after a while they started to pick at each other's feathers. But so far these chickens are not feather picking, perhaps because these chickens go out into a pen, a bigger pen, every afternoon for 2 or 3 hours. And I think this might be helping. Previously, I found that when I put the chickens in an outdoor pen, over time they dug up and destroyed all of the grass and other plants. With this group, I made 2 pens. One has soft garden dirt to dig in, and the other has grass. The pens are connected to each other so the chickens can wander back and forth from one to the other as they please, depending on if they want to dig or to graze. And so far, that's worked really well and they haven't destroyed the grassy area. Now I can't tell what these chickens are thinking, but if I had to guess, I think they are really enjoying the chance to run and fly outdoors.